I'm Dr. Indigo, and welcome to Keynotes Platform. I would like to talk to you about something that's very dear to my heart, and that is mental health. You know, we're hearing a lot more about mental health these days, although it's not new. Mental health has been around, and we've been struggling in trying to understand it for quite some time. What's interesting, it took a storm to come across the globe for us to start recognizing the importance of taking care of ourselves and our mental well being. For instance, I would say that we understand more about the body than we do the mind. In fact, we know more about outer space than we do the mind. They can tell us all about the galaxies, black holes, everything. They can't tell us why we feel the way we do. They can't tell us how to move through certain things when we are going through a storm. So very often, many of us struggle. And so I want to share just a couple of things to help you to understand not only why mental health is important, but how to have and contribute to your own mental well-being. And that is through self-care. And the first thing is we must understand mental health in terms of how we understand physical health. You see, mental health exists just like physical health exists. See, there is a spectrum. You have mental wellness and mental illness. And they're on the spectrum of 1 to 10. 1 being illness, right, which is red, and wellness being 10, which is green. And what's interesting is that green is the color for mental health because it is said that when we're in nature, we tend to heal and we tend to feel better. But right now, many of us are in lockdown and we're not able to connect with nature. So we're not even able to connect with others. And being social beings, that is required of us to connect with other people. So many of us are struggling with this thing called mental health. And we run along that spectrum quite often. Because I don't have time to go into it, I would like to one day have a conversation with you about that spectrum and how you move along that spectrum throughout the day. You can wake up easily as a 10, feeling vibrant, feeling alive. But then by the time you get to your computer and you see a couple of messages that are very discouraging, you could easily go down to an 8. And then you may get a call that you lost your job. You will quickly go to a 5 or maybe even a 4. So it is important to understand that we all have mental health, and because of that, we are beautifully human. We have all of these various ranges of emotions that we often experience, but because we're not used to it, we try to move through it too quickly, and we don't give ourselves a chance to actually heal and have the experiences of these different emotions. So the second one, the first one is understanding that we all have mental health. The second one is understanding that we're in a storm, and storms cause fires. And in these fires, we try to fight them all with the same hose. But I submit to you, in the workplace, there are different fires. And we can no longer fight these fires with the same dry, rotted hose. For instance, feeling like you belong could be a forest fire. Feeling as if you're depressed can be an oil fire. Then you can have what's called depression, sadness, anger. All those could be an electrical fire. So you understand, as many fires that exist in this world are the many fires that are taking place in our corporations, in our home, in organizations. And if we don't know how to deal with each of them differently to put out those fires spread throughout your organization. So let's just take, for instance, change. That's a fire. That could be a gas fire. And if we're talking about change, meaning we're not doing business the same way, someone may be so negatively impacted by it, and if you don't pay attention, it could be an explosion in terms of how they relate to the other people in the organization, how they relate to the customer, how they do their work. So it's so important that we recognize that these fires exist and that we call in professionals who can help us with the fires. The last thing I want to talk about is making sure that you get a health checkup. a mental health checkup. You see, many of you have already gotten your car checkup, you got your dental checkup, you may have gone to a gynecologist and got the pap smear. So there's all these physical checkups, mental and so forth, doesn't seem to get a checkup. And it is so important that right now you are talking to professionals who can identify behaviors that are alarming that you may not recognize. It's important to talk to professionals like me who can come in and talk about what the impact, the long-term impact of what we're going through can cause on not just you as an individual, but for your organization. So I'd like for you to understand that right now, more than ever, you need to be seeking out speakers who have a background not only in mental health, but also in corporate relations, employee engagement, performance, and productivity. And that's what I bring to the table. I am actually a success and mind wellness practitioner. I've owned a company since 1995. I've owned it in the US, where it was one of the top 500 fastest growing companies according to Inc. magazine, twice. And also here in Asia, I own a company. So I understand having employees. I understand burnout. I understand success. I understand what it takes to be a leader. And I have coached leaders at the Pentagon, at NASA, at some of the more highly known and recognized organizations in America. But I blend that with Eastern philosophy, because Eastern philosophy is everything from meditation to self-care, mindfulness, all these different practices that will help you and your employees to be at your best, even in the midst of a storm. So if you're looking for that umbrella, which is resilience, to move through this storm, please contact me. Because here's the thing, I may not be able to stop the storm, but I believe the information I can share with you will help you to not get drenched. With that, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure and I wish you well. I'm Dr. Indigo with Keynote.